Ireland against Fiji this weekend, folks, from the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Can Fiji get their first ever win over the Irish? It's probably one of their best chances. It's a pretty strong-looking Fijian lineup, and Andy Farrell has rotated his squad, remembering they still have one game after this one against the Wallabies in that kind of final week when everyone else is done for the year. Let's have a look at the recent history between the sides, the squad, some stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. There's been plenty of reviews and previews and stats for you guys over the last few weeks. So if you want more of that, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Ireland, as I mentioned, Andy Farrell has made a few changes, and you feel like he's got to keep things fresh. And Ireland haven't really hit top gear just yet. We're still waiting for them to click. They've looked great in some patches, both ball in hand and defensively, but you still feel like there's more in the tank from the Irish side. Can the youngsters maybe get things clicking this weekend? We'll have to wait and see. Porter, McCarthy and Beelum is the front row. Gus McCarthy, what a meteoric rise for this young fella. He's only just started his career with Leinster, and yet here he is getting his test debut. Andy Farrell basically said in the press conference that his performance levels and training and whatnot has been kind of undeniable. He couldn't deny him a spot, so this is a good bit of depth building for the Irish, remembering Dan Sheehan is still on the road to recovery from a long-term injury. But yeah, congratulations to that young man. Joe McCarthy and Tyke Byrne is a changed second row, with Byrne switching from 6 to lock for this one to make way for Cormac Ezechukwu. So big congratulations to that guy as well. He's been impressive over in URC form, so we'll see what he can do in Irish colours alongside the veterans Van der Fleer and Doris, World Player of the Year nominee Caelan Doris. We'll see if he can live up to some of that billing this weekend. Van der Fleer, though, was maybe one of the men of the match last week. Like, he topped the carry count for the Irish with like 14, and he made 24 tackles, which is a pretty Herculean shift. Not many guys get 20 plus, and he's kind of almost halfway to 30 last week. A former World Player of the Year himself. Craig Casey and Sam Prendergast is a kind of youthful looking 9-10 combo. Both these guys are Irish capped. Casey's got a few more than Sam Prendergast, who got his first taste of test match rugby last week, but looked pretty comfortable with the speed of the game. So he'll be looking to take this game by the scruff of the neck, and he's ahead of Kieran Frawley, who's on the bench. So if ever there was a chance to put your test match credentials forward for a young 10, this is a good one. Bundy Aki returns to the side after missing out last week. He's back in the 12 jersey. That means Henshaw switches to 13. Those guys know each other pretty well from both club and country. And then the wings have a kind of slight change. Mac Hansen continues on, but then on the left wing comes in Jacob Stockdale, who for a while I thought his days in Ireland colours were done, but he's actually been in pretty good form from what I've seen of him for Ulster this season, so good reward for him. And then Jamie Osborne off the bench to start at fullback this week. Remember, he's had a couple of games from the bench the last 2 weeks, and back when we were over in South Africa, he was looking really sharp, so he gets to add another test match start to his line of caps in the past. Ronan Kelleher, Tom O'Toole, and Thomas Clarkson, those are your front row replacements. So Kelleher drops to the bench, Tom O'Toole's back, and then Thomas Clarkson, who's only a new cap in Ireland colours himself, gets another go. Ian Henderson's back. He'll be looking for a better shift than he put in from the bench against the ABs. That is for sure. Cian Prendergast also gets another Irish cap, having kind of had a few sporadic ones over the years. Conor Murray, the veteran, is there as your replacement halfback. He's back into the 23. Kieran Frawley, like I mentioned, he's been a hero in the past for Ireland from the bench. He probably would have liked to start this one, but if he gets half an hour, he'll need to kind of upstage the guy who's jumped him in the queue if he does come on at 10. He could come on at 15. And then McCloskey is there in the number 23 jumper. So I think it's the first run for the November series for the big man in the midfield. For Fiji, they didn't really get into top gear themselves last week against Spain. They did get the win, but it took them about an hour, I think, to get into the lead for that one, which was a little bit unusual. Remember, they also played Scotland earlier on in this tour when their big guns weren't available at the test match window and got hammered by the Scots, but then you can't read too much into that one. As I said, all the guys based in Europe were not available. It was basically the Fijian and draw from Super Rugby. And then they beat Wales. They beat Wales away. So Fiji overall is having a pretty good year. They won the Pacific Nations Cup. They beat Wales for the first time in Cardiff, so there's certainly been some positives for this Fijian side. They have made a few changes. Ikanaveri, the hooker for the Fijian Drua, is back into the 23 in the number 2 jersey. He does have a little bit of a hot head at times. He can get himself into some trouble, but he also loves a close range carry. So Ireland will need to be careful letting that guy around maul time, or if they can get the kind of goal line ball, he will love to be the guy taking it over the line. Tangi and Maui are the 2 props alongside him. Voasese and Mayana Vanua are the 2 locks, so that's a bit of experience with Mayana Vanua coming up from the bench for this one. And Darren Langi, another one of the Fijian and Drua boys, is there back in the number 6 jersey. Remember, he's got a bit of sevens background, so if you leave him any space, he is certainly one to punish. Salawa is probably going to be the top tackler, or there could be Thanakai Vata, who is there at number 8. There's a fair few tackles in both 7 and 8 for this Fijian side. Frank Lamani is back in at number 9 after not playing last week, so he should be fresh, alongside Caleb Muntz, who had a cracking game against Wales. If you didn't see it, he kicked his goals and is certainly not afraid to take the ball to the line. If you give him any space, he will go for it. Joshua Tuisova, boy, that's a big ball carrier to have in at number 12. He's back in, so Naithalevu, who played 12 last week, switches to 13, and he was very dangerous against Spain. That midfield battle is going to be worth the price of admission. Aki and Henshaw up against Tuisova and Naithalevu. Very, very tasty. All veterans and all very, very classy players. Wainingolo is on the right wing. Logan Imasi is on the left. And then Karawalevu was there at 15. They did play the kind of double playmaker thing last week against Spain, but it's back to more of an out-and-out fullback with Karawalevu there at 15. Matsavesi, who had the most carries for the Fijians last week, drops to the bench. He's the reserve hooker. Hetet and Tawake, the other 2 front row replacements. Turanganathoke is there, who I think got a debut against Spain last week. He's the lock replacement. I think he's only like 18 years old. So he's certainly another one getting a taste of Test match rugby. Tuisui, the big unit, drops to the bench. Matawalu, Botitu, and Mangala, the 3 back replacements. So both sides opting for 5-3 splits. Remember, there's no Randra because he is still serving a ban, having gotten red carded against Wales. Some stats. Ireland have been averaging 6 clean breaks a game in 2024, which is a pretty solid number, but they've only had 5 in the last 2 games combined, which is a little bit concerning on attack. They've not clicked like we know they can. They are a possession-based team. They usually have more possession than their opponents. Again, the last 2 games, 41% against New Zealand. I think it was 49 against Argentina. Uncharacteristic. They're going to want to hold the ball against Fiji. But that being said, because there's been a fair bit of smack talked about this Irish side, that suddenly they're too old and they're all past it, they've only conceded 2 tries in the last 3 games if we head back to South Africa. So that's pretty encouraging. Not many sides can say that, although they have conceded 13 penalties in the last 2 games, which is obviously not ideal. So get the discipline right, hang on to the ball, and get that attack clicking, I would imagine, are key things that Andy Farrell wants to see out of the side. Fiji dominated second half possession and territory against Spain last week when they managed to kind of come back and take the game away from the Spanish. You would imagine getting their hands on the ball and staying out of their own half will be tougher against Ireland than against Spain. But they only missed 6 tackles against Spain, so defensively pretty solid, which is not something we always think of with Fiji and rugby. But as I mentioned, there are some certain guys in this team, particularly like the locks, the back rowers, very good tackle machine players. They also conceded 13 penalties last week, though. So they will certainly need to keep their discipline clean. They got a yellow card in that game against Spain as well. They got a red card against Wales. They need to keep 15 guys on the field if they are going to have a chance to be the first Fijian side to get a win over the Irish. The last 5 games is 5-0 to Ireland. That's the only 5 games these teams have ever played, going back to 1995. What were you doing in 1995? I think I had just finished primary school. It is a while ago. That game was 44-8. We've had 64-17, 41-6, and a 35-17. All pretty handy results, but there was one in 2017, which was 20 points Fiji, 23 Ireland. So a proper close game. Some of the guys that played in that game are still knocking about now. Fingers crossed from a Fijian point of view, they can absolutely push Ireland. But you feel like Ireland are still due, as I mentioned, to get into top gear at some point. Average is 41-14, but take that with a bit of grain of salt because, as I mentioned, it goes back 2 decades pretty much. The bookies are predicting the Irish to get a win by 21 points and the Rugby Forecast algorithm pretty much agrees, saying Ireland by 23. So they are big-time favourites for this one. It's an afternoon kickoff over in Dublin, which is pretty early morning for those of us in Fiji and New Zealand. Holly Davison, the Scots woman, is the referee for this one. She's pretty good. I rate her as one of the better referees, controls the game very well. I hope she has a good game. If you want some British and Irish Lions gear, by the way, ahead of next year's tour, check out the British and Irish Lions Rugby store. They're an affiliate of this channel, so if you're planning on getting a British and Irish Lions Rugby jersey, do it from them using that link. Sends them a message that 2 cents sent you, which is happy days because 2 cents loves a rugby jersey. You guys let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.